How do we relate to our parents as young adults? I mean, really, it is ironic that on the one hand, we are full-grown adults with our own lives to lead. And so they expect us to have our own finances, professions, and relationships to pursue. But on the other hand, they do not fully acknowledge our independence as well. It's as if we are teenagers and every choice has to go through them. I mean, really, how do we deal with our parents as young adults? Let's talk about that. And just like that, September is done. Welcome to the last 3 months of 2021 and welcome back to YA Talks Season 2. YA Talks is the podcast where we talk about everything young adults need to know about the adulting life and walking in Christ. I'm Pastor JP Kabuhat, the young adults pastor of Green Hills Christian Fellowship. This podcast, while streamed live, is also available on demand on YouTube and Facebook. Soon you'll be able to access YA Talks wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So for those who are with us for the first time, here at YA Talks, we have different kinds of episodes. First is Tough Topics, where we talk to a guest speaker about topics not often discussed in church. The second is You Got Questions, the podcast where we answer questions that you yourselves have emailed. And third is Devotionals, where we go through a study series of the Bible. And today's YA Talks episode is Tough Topics. Here we invite a guest speaker to discuss with us one of those topics we feel awkward to talk about in the open. Speaking of awkward topics, today we will talk about parental guidance, how to deal with your parents as a young adult. Feel free to post your comments below if you have any follow-up questions about today's talk. Towards the end of today's episode, I'll be reading out some of your questions and we can talk about it. But for now, you guys ready? Because I am. Now let's get into it. Allow me first to introduce our guest speaker. Let's start with her education. She earned her PhD in psychology in UP Diliman, MA Developmental Studies in the Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, the Netherlands, BS Home Economics, major in family life and child development. Her current engagements are the following: the Executive Director of GCF ICS, Head of Emmaus Road Counseling Center in GCF, Clinical Psychologist in Ellipse, Professorial Lecturer of Family Life and Child Development in UP Diliman, HR Consultant, Tokai Rika Phil, and Senior Personal Advisor of OMF Phil Home Council. YA fam, let us give a virtual warm welcome to our guest speaker for tonight, Dr. Yohit Roldan. Hello po.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, the pleasure is ours. And by the way po, fun fact, especially for our listeners, my first ever experience in counseling is with Dr. Yoyit. I hope you can still remember that.
Of course.
Yes, 2014 po. So I can very well attest to your counseling ministry. However, unlike me, most of our listeners may not be aware of your vast experience, not just in counseling or as an educator, but more so as a parent of parents yourself. So can you share your journey po to our listeners today?
Oh, it was 15 years ago when I was parenting young adults like you. So 15 years ago, that was like 2001, 2005. We have our children, our three children are one after another. So they were young adults together. And so when they left us, they almost left us together too. So we were empty nesting. But it was in 2005, particularly when it was our last time together as a family. Each one of them left us one at a time in that whole span of year. In 2005, Rainer got married. Andrea left for missions in Indonesia, and then Renate left in December of that year too for the US to study for further studies. So that year, all our young adults left us. And then in 2017, for the first time, we were together again here in the Philippines. And that was when all of them from the US came home with Renate, and the family is complete. And it's the same number of grandchildren until
Mm,
today. So that was really the complete family in 2017 when
mm,
when we had a reunion. So the Lord has been really, really good. His grace, and His mercy abound. And
mm,
actually, we never had any ambition for our children. Our only goal really is for them to love Christ. We
mm,
cannot promise them anything. We were not rich. We are not
mm,
rich, and so we said, if they love the Lord will take care of them, and their
mm.
future is assured when they love the Lord, if they love the Lord. So that is our only prayer, that they will really devote their lives to the Lord.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And that only prayer is the really only prayer that we want for our children. Thank you so much also. And one of the key insights there was 2005 was the last time you had a young adult under the roof that you're living in. That was also the time that I received Jesus Christ. So I was 19 during that time, 2005. But let me go to the meat of today's discussion. One of the things we found out when we were preparing for this message was how young adults struggle with relating to their parents.
Yeah,
How do we honor our mothers and fathers and yet still lead our separate lives as full-grown adults po?
yeah. Just putting it in context, because you're talking about parents of young adults. Young adults at this stage, there is this famous sculptor. He's Norwegian, and he has this uh, great park in Oslo, which is the Vigilant Park in Oslo. And then he depicted a human life in hundreds of sculptures. But he, particularly for young adults, he did something like the first one was grouping together, finding their way, finding a job, starting a family. But particularly, this is from 21, as you have identified, you're dealing with 21 to 35 young adults. And if you talk about their parents, they're by this time, when you're young adult, they would be between 51 to 65. So in between the young adult and the late adulthood, you have the middle adulthood. You are moving towards middle adulthood while your parents are leaving middle adulthood. And these stages actually have differing needs. And your parents are actually moving towards retirement. And so while you are trying to establish your lives, your parents are actually retiring. And along this line, it's really good to understand what the needs are, what not only what your needs are, but also the needs of your parents. Yeah, but before we move to that, I want to first go to scriptures and what is the most like overriding principle when it comes to children relating to their parents. That could be found in Ephesians 6:1. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth." this is like the standing principle, and we could veer away a little bit from that, but that is what is the standing principle when it comes to our relationship with our parents.
All right. Thank you for that. And it's good to be aware of the needs of our parents too. It's a good way to start this. And understanding is a good part of that relational dynamics. And what I reflect on this is how both parents and children are not being offensive. They're just being them. They're just coming from different contexts. Like what you said, po, YAs are steering, are more on the steering wheel
Yeah,
of the ship.
yes, I'll go to that. I'll go to that.
Okay.
Actually, I look at the young adults. When I look at young adults, I could picture them like two ships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the young adults would be the ship that is starting to, it's starting to build and wanting to move forward, while the
Mm-hmm.
parents are having their own ship that the adults left. So young adults, particularly, they desire to have their own ship, having they want to have the fuel and the resources to run their ship, just like having a job. They want to control the direction and speed of their ship, which is the decisions that they make. And controlling and direction would refer to them as like they are the wheel or the helm. They are the
Mm.
wheel of the they're the steering wheel of the ship. They are they want to connect, they want to address demands com- in completing their crew, like establishing their family, because if the ship is like their life, they want to complete their crew. They also, while they're leaving their parents, they desire to communicate that having their own ship actually does not mean they're abandoning the other ship, you know. And then, but if you look now at the parents in the other ship, they actually, I liken them like anchors, like they're more an anchor more than a steering wheel, because they're now slowly moving. They're stopping and looking back at what has already been traveled or conquered or accomplishments. The parents are like stopping and planning on the last sail that they will take before they retire, and they desire to keep, if ever they want to keep the crew of their ship who are one by one leaving them, they desire to teach the captain of the new ship on how to navigate their own ship, their new ship. And they also want to that they also have the desire to maintain and upkeep the ship that they are in until its final years. So you see, there are two ships now going on, and both have different concerns.
Yes. And again, harping on what I said, both are not really trying to be offensive, but they're just coming from different contexts. Like what you said po, it's a beautiful illustration. Sabi nga po ni Caleb, good illustration using ship. Siyempre kasama na ang relationship.
Yeah.
On the practical side of things, then let's go forward. If our listeners want to have a list of application points or things to do after this podcast, as a response to what you just shared, what would be some of those po?
Yeah, I just listed around six. And I think the main umbrella of this is actually trusting or looking at, if you are on a ship, I think those who are navigating the ship, they have, if they get lost, their guide is one true north, the true north, or the North Star, because the North Star is you'll never get lost if you see the North Star. And I think that our North Star, if the two ships would look at Jesus, look up at the North Star, then you'll not get lost, and you will all be going to the same direction. So I think the first and foremost is listening. We have to listen to our parents, because our parents think we're not listening enough. So we have to listen and show them that we are taking serious consideration uh, for whatever they are telling us. Listening and communicating your own acts, communicating your apprehensions, communicating your anxieties, will actually relieve them, or will somehow loosen their clutches and be more caring on you, in relation to you. Second is you let go of your immediate let go and not cater to immediate gratification. This means managing your finances well. And at this time, there's just so many opportunities, so many wants. And I think one of the disciplines that we should have is to let go of having our immediate gratification. The third is trusting God for what is to come. Again, the future. If we place our lives to God, He will take care of our future, and He takes care of our future. And this should not be just verbalized, it should be lived. It should be lived the way we live our lives in faith, and having this peace in our hearts that God actually will take care of our future. The fourth is respecting and honoring our parents in the midst of hurts and disappointments. We will be seeing a lot of disappoint. We will be
Hmm.
disappointed a lot. We'll see a lot of some many mistakes that our parents have committed, but we have to still respect them and honor them. And then we have to verbalize and show that we care. This is something that we have to do and uh, try to get used to, because it's good to hear that we actually care, and we have to show them that we remember their birthdays, we remember them in their, we know what is their favorite food or their favorite color. And then the last but not the least, which is very important, is sorting, clarifying, organizing, and managing your own life well. If they see that you can manage your own life, then they will be more not, they will lose their control over you, because they know that you are wise and you can manage your life well.
I wanna harp back po on that last part, sorting, clarifying, and managing your own life well, because a lot of our follow-up questions in a bit will be related to that question. But also the idea of still respecting and honoring your parents in the midst of your disappointment about them is something that we should take home the most. And yes, the idea of finding little ways to still verbalize that you care, remembering their birthdays or saying hello, communicating your angst and listening also. But now let's go, Doctora, to the questions that were submitted to us in advance. Because when we were preparing this, there were people who were already sending questions. Because, as perhaps what you have noticed, this is a big deal for our young adults today. And the first question that was asked is this: what are the things that need permissions, blessings, or just FYI na lang sa parents? Marriage, moving out, disclaimer, not live in as BFGF, ha? Or having a boyfriend, having a girlfriend, vacation trips, investments, or ministry commitments?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think as young adults, I would dare say you don't ask permission anymore. You're an adult, so you don't ask permission, but what you ask for is advice. You ask for advice because it's good to listen to your parents' advice, because they have lived their life more than half the time that they will be living. But you don't have to ask their permission. Actually, you don't ask their permission anymore. You do that until you're 18 or till 20. But when you're a young adult, you have to be responsible for the decisions that you make. Also, when you ask permission, you give them an idea that in fact they could meddle. You don't want them to meddle. You want to make your own decisions, and then you ask their permission. So I think you should actually ask their advice more than ask their permission. Okay?
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's pretty clear for our listeners. Do not ask for their permission. You ask for advice. Another question was sent in: what are the guiding principles in providing financial support to parents? How to set boundaries so that it will not be abused or will still be beneficial for them in the long run?
Actually, in this matter, there's no hard and fast rule. this is a very raw issue, especially with us Filipinos. And a good principle to follow is for you to be mindful of what are the real, what is the real score in terms of your parents' needs. But I think you cannot be supporting this because you're starting your own family too. But what you do is identify uh, specific areas where you can help. For example, providing them their medicine, monthly medicine, because at this time they will be having their maintenance doses already. Or you could also, one practice would be sending the next brother or sister to school, so that after that it's his turn to send someone else to school. Others would do that. That way you enter marriage, or you enter your final adult life having this piece that you actually help in some way. But I think one another principle to follow is that if you're still living with your parents, you're a young adult, you're living with your parents, you should help. You should help in the upkeep, or in the running of the home, like
Mm.
the bills to pay. You have to share, because you're supposed to be having your own place already by this
Mm.
time. And so
Rent.
it's good to share, and that way you're also helping, but that way also you're giving your due, what is due for you to share in your household. So it's good for you to pay for those. Sometimes you say, I'll just live with my parents because so that I can save up, but it's still good to consider that in your budget. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
don't consider that anymore and use our whole money for ourselves.
Okay, so fam, if you're living with your parents, contribute. As a matter of fact, you should already be renting out already. So contribute as much as you could. Another question was sent in. What if my parents have favoritism? As the favorite or as the not favorite, what should be my attitude about it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, and it really applies. I could resonate with that because I was not the favorite of anyone in the family. The favorite is my other sister and my brother, and so on and so forth. But you know what? As a testimony, if you're not the favorite, then God will take care of you. God
Mm.
always takes care of those who are marginalized. And I think in my testimony, I really think God took care of me, even though. And I remembered in my father's deathbed, he he apologized. He told me, Yoit, I'm sorry, I did not take care of you enough, or I didn't give you anything. And I told him, Daddy, it's okay. Because of
Mm.
that, God took care of me so well. And I have no cause to complain. Everything is provided for. So he passed away peacefully, because I told him he didn't owe me anything. Yeah. So
Okay.
if there's a favorite, it's okay. I
Mhm.
think you cannot avoid that. Parents would always, they cannot avoid it. Even if they hide it, you will see it, because someone who looks like him, or looks like your father, or looks like your mother, and so on and so forth. So that's forgivable. That's okay. They're just human. Human. Yeah.
Take home on that question. Fam, if you're not the favorite to the person who asked this, the Lord will take care of you.
Yeah.
Another question po was sent, Doctora. If ever, should a young adult be supportive to his or her parents' decision or inclination to separate? What should be his or her attitude towards it?
You mean the parents are in conflict and they want to separate?
Yeah, they decided to.
Yes. A good principle there is for you not to meddle.
Hmm.
Parents, the couple, the parents, because I know of a lot of cases whenever children come in and parents are in conflict, the spouses are in conflict, it gets worse, because whether you like it or not, you don't know the total picture of the story.
Mm.
Between husbands and wives, you'll never know the full story. And I have seen in many families where children would get in. They would think that they are neutral. They will just be arbiters, but in fact, it really worsens. The parents should be able to resolve their problems amongst themselves, or maybe seek a counselor, but you as children, you support both of them, but don't get in the middle, and don't get caught up in the middle. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not helpful. Mm-mm.
All
Because
right.
you
So
don't know, they'll never tell you the full picture. You'll never know the full picture when it comes to husband and wife.
correct. So as a general rule, don't meddle. Let me continue po, Doc, with the other questions. Another one said, what if my decision is not aligned to what my parents want? What should I do?
um, again, there's so much. Listen to them. What do they think? Why is it that they are not aligned? Why is it that they think otherwise? Always consider. Try not to be reactive. Try not to push yourself into deciding the opposite, or just to show that you're in control of your decisions. Listen well and see what is their advice, or what do they want you to do. But in the end, you have to make the decision yourself, and you have to show them that why you are making that decision, and that if you will make a mistake, you will be responsible for it.
All right. So listen, fam, but you will still have to make the decisions because you're already a full grown adult.
But you have to speak your thoughts carefully too, and explain
Correct.
what it is. Why are you making such a decision? Because they want to know. I think they just want the best for you. Always think that they want the best for you. Of course, sometimes if they have a need, they also want something
Mm-hmm.
something that they could piggyback for themselves too, but
Mm-hmm.
that's because they have a need. But if they don't have a need, I don't think they will do that for themselves.
Correct. So of
Mhm.
course, living from or going from the principle that you said a while ago from Ephesians 6 verse 1, you still honor your parents, you listen, and you make that decision in view of that calling, that passage of still honoring your parents.
Yeah, and then assuring them that even if you disagree with them, you still love them.
Okay.
Okay.
Another question was sent. What to do when parents and children have different values and beliefs in humanity, in politics, etc. Especially in politics, it's kind of emotional when it comes to discussions about that. How do you respond if you live in a household that has totally different political stance?
Actually, even our law provides for that between husband and wife. You know,
Wow.
the husband
Wow.
cannot force the wife to believe what he believes. You know, really, really.
That's
So,
something new.
yes. And so I think as adults, we really have our own positions, and we have to respect that. And through time, maybe you can convince each other, but I think a real good healthy family would be open to the ideas of others. But I think as healthy adults, you could have your own position, and you don't force that in. It's not forced in. Mhm.
All right. So you don't force it in, you don't force the issue. Healthy adults can have different stands, but you don't force the issue.
No.
Okay. Doc, another question. How to deal with emotional dumping from parents? Could be followed up with how to encourage them to try out therapy or something.
Oh, like they have that
They
is
have
not
issues.
that is not just issues of parents. It's also an issue of everyone else. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just our parents. But I think this is something you cannot really insist on. Just like political beliefs and all, I think again, when people are in crisis, that's when they ask for help. So you just have to wait for the right time. But you cannot really force when someone doesn't want to be helped. You cannot force it in. No, you cannot. It's really for yourself, maybe, because you want to be relieved of the burden of caring for your parent, but it's not really for your parent because the parent doesn't see it. So the most difficult part, actually, even in the helping profession, in counseling and in therapy, is when people don't see that they have a need for it,
Mm,
and that
mm.
they don't have a part in the problem. And that will take time. It takes time. You cannot force it in. Mm-mm. It's something
Yes.
that has to be real.
Okay. All right. So you cannot insist on it in the
No.
same wavelength of the political stance.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have another question, Doctora. How to deal with parents who are manipulative and only look at you as an ATM machine? Wow.
With that, I think that is just a symptom of the real relationships in the family. So I think you have to work on your relationship with your parent and talking to them beyond the ATM machine. Sometimes you also communicate to them that I'm here just to earn a living, that I'm a different person now because I'm independent and so on. But I think those are just symptoms of deeper problems in the family. And so if they look at you as an ATM machine, maybe they are really in need, or that maybe you made them get used to that too.
Mm,
So uh, it is you who would also socialize them into not looking at you that way by talking to them about other things aside from money and finances in the family.
okay. Right. And the last question perhaps culminates everything that was asked prior. And it goes like, what's a respectful way to set boundaries for yourself as a young adult, able to make your own decisions, and yet still a daughter, son living under the roof?
Yeah, boundaries. When you set that, one of the movement before you set a boundary, actually, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to communication, is that first you have to make sure that people, both sides, were listened to. You have to listen to what, you have to know their side. Before you can set your own boundary, you have to know their side. They have to know your side. So listen carefully, listen very well, and make sure that when you listen, they really think that you understood. So you communicate that you actually listen. And that way, so when you set your boundaries, you speak your thought, or your speak your ideas clearly. You cannot set your boundary without really telling your parents what you think about things, about the situation, about the issue. So speak your mind in in a nice way. And then after you have spoken and then you still don't agree, then then continue with your decision, again assuring them that even if this is my decision, which is not the same as yours, then I will still pursue this. But uh, I would like to assure you that I still love you and I still care for you. And the boundaries, I think, very much depends on you, and the way you react in a consistent manner, and the way you react in a loving manner. Then they will respect that. I think respect is should be mutual. If you respect
Mm,
your parents, and then your parents respect you, then you try to model what it means to respect. And then I
mm.
think they will see that this is how my daughter or my son is really grown, and the way he behaves is not like anymore like a teenager, but
Okay.
actually he speaks with wisdom.
All right. Before you set your boundaries, know their side, explain your side, listen well, communicate, and make sure you let them know that you understood theirs and you speak your ideas clearly. Respect begets respect. So model respect. We have one more pahabol, look, one more question.
Okay.
And it's something about respect. What if they do not agree with me and impose their opinion as law?
Oh,
This
that
has to be, you're living in my house. This is how it's supposed to be done.
I think it's time to move on.
Mm,
I think it's really time to move on. And I think as young adults, your goal must be, if you really want, I think you have to move on, because there are some parents really who has that rule that as long as you're under my roof, I will be followed, and so because you're under their roof, then I think that's you have to strategize. I remembered I advised someone in our church that I told her to strategize, because yeah, there was a tendency for the family to be overspending already, just using her resources and so on. And I said, you're not actually loving them, because you're teaching them to be spending more than what they can afford.
mm,
So I told her to start investing in a condo. And now she has her condo, and they're living really really well together when they eat together on Sundays and so on. Their relationships became better. Her
yun.
relationship with her siblings, with her parents became better because she moved on. And I think there comes a point when you really have to move on. And it's
Mm,
nice that in your time and age that you can actually move on even if you're not married. During my time, you can only get out of your
mm,
house if you get married. During that
mm.
time, during our uh, in our generation. But now you can actually have the luxury of living near your office, near your job, and you have that option. So, but then you have to spend for your rental, and so you have to live more simply. So that is a decision that would entail living within your means and living simply. And together with that, simply living simply, I think I have to bring in another issue of, um, the tendency to loan and the tendency to buy things ahead of time before you get your salaries. So
Mm,
try to
mm.
have that discipline too, because that shows maturity too, and shows what it means to live according to what God has given you.
All right. So, I hope everyone na hindi pa maka-move on can move on already. Just kidding. Dr. Hora, any parting words po before we close this podcast?
Oh, yeah. My parting words for you, all of you guys, is not anymore Ephesians 6:1, which is obey your parents. But my parting words for you is in Proverbs 23, verses 22 to 25. Listen to your father who gave you life. Do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. By wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. So
Wow.
that in Proverbs 23, the importance of really building or getting your wisdom. And this wisdom, what does Proverbs say, comes from the fear of the Lord. You'll never go wrong. Fear the Lord and you will gain wisdom. And so fear and obedience of our God will bring wisdom.
Thank you so much, Doctora, for your time and gracing us in this podcast with such wise things. Thank you so much po.
You're
And
welcome.
yes, and you guys also for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us in tonight's episode of YA Talks Tough Topics. But what about you? What are your thoughts about our topic tonight? Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section below. Also, if you want someone to walk alongside you, maybe in how to deal with your parents in a more specific way or in Christian living in general, Please fill up our online form and you are 3 minutes away from your discipleship journey. Visit bit.ly/GCF ready, set, go. For all your questions about life and walking in Christ, email your questions to yougotquestions@gcf.org.ph, and who knows, your question might be answered in the coming episode. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at GCF Young Adults. We're going live again next Friday for a new episode. So turn on that notifications to stay tuned on this channel. My name is Pastor JP Kabuhat, and this is YA Talks. See ya next week.